Welcome to this episode of the Angel Rated Show. I'm Angela Bryant, and with me today I have Aisling FitzGibbon, who is a holistic nutrition coach and founder of Aislings Health School. Welcome, Aisling. It's lovely to have you here.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here on your show, and I think I'm the first episode.
You are indeed. And
Yeah.
yes, really excited to get going with this and to get it out to the world. Would you like to start by telling us a little bit about yourself and your online business?
Yeah, so I suppose a little bit of the background as to why I even ended up doing this. When I was in university, I got really unwell when I was 19, and I went to the doctor at the time, and I was prescribed antidepressant medication because my symptoms were basically like really low energy, low mood, anxious, all those things. So I was put on medication, and at that time I was kind of like, didn't want to be taking medication, but I also felt so bad that I was kind of like, I don't know what to do with myself. So at the end, I actually qualified as an occupational therapist, and I just felt like everyone was applying for jobs, and I was even offered a job in my last placement. I went to university in Manchester, and I didn't even have energy to apply for a job, and I was just like, that's it. I have to get to the root cause of why I'm so unwell. So I ended up going to a nutritionist then down in Devon, and yeah, it just totally opened my mind to a whole new possibility. And I was like, oh my gosh, I have to do this. Like, I knew that I wanted to get to the root cause of it anyway. And I kind of had an idea that there had to be some imbalance in my system, or, I knew that there was some reason why I was feeling so unwell. So that's how I ended up really falling in love with nutrition. And after a couple of months, I was just like, oh my gosh, started feeling so much better. But then I was like, I want to do this. Like, I want to do this as my career. So I went back then and I trained as a nutritionist, and like then you're kind of like, oh, I'm a nutritionist, what next? So I was kind of like, how do I actually make this into a business, and I actually ended up going to a Hay House weekend over in London, and I met this lovely lady called Samantha, and she was a business coach, and I was telling her about what I was doing, and I just qualified. And or don't you think I had qualified at that stage? I was actually just kind of doing my exams and stuff, and I was just about to qualify. So yeah, I was actually really like, how do I actually start practicing? So basically, I was just seeing people like as I was training, and they were coming to my house, and then I was thinking, oh, I'll continue that. I'll continue having like in-person sessions. And then I was just like, okay, this is really more confusing and harder than I ever realized. Like, and just even putting myself out there was so difficult as well, like the confidence piece, because you're very much like doing it on your own. It's not like you're in occupational therapy, you kind of walk into a job and you're guided and you have all that support. Whereas with this, it's very much like uncharted territory. So it was a couple of months into seeing like clients on my own that I was on the fence of actually joining B school it was in like February of 2016. And my mom at the time was like, okay, you have to like, do you feel like this is a full yes? So my mom would be like, into your intuition and everything. So I just put my hand on my heart, and I was just like, no, I'm not meant to join. And then I ended up then like a week or 2 weeks later, I think it was, this lady who I connected with in London, she was running a group program for people who were setting up online businesses, and who are like straight out the gate, like as in just starting off for the first time and bringing different, some like different backgrounds and different professions. So I saw that anyway, and I just signed up to that straight away. And working with her was really like instrumental in being able to, number one, understand that I could practice nutrition online. Like, I didn't even think I could do that, or that people would actually even be happy with that service. So I just started with that and started seeing people then one-on-one, and instead of seeing them in one-off sessions, I started seeing them over 3 months. Yeah, then over time, like 2017, yeah, it's been like a development of like understanding how to like run group programs. So I've run a few group programs. And then in 2018, I launched my membership for the first time. And that's recently been rebranded as Aislings Health School. So yeah, the online world is a real, like, it's like steep learning curves at every angle, because it's not just about doing it, it's actually about learning how to do it, and how to market it, and how to make it into a business, and how to make it that it's not like taking over your whole entire life. There's so many different elements to it, but I'm so lucky to have had support of coaches and mentors, and I've joined B School. I've done lots of different trainings. Continue to do so because I think it's so important to just be in that space with others who are growing in the online world, because people who are not in it, it kind of seems like, what are you doing? So it's very good to be able to have like support and space with people who get that path, because it's kind of like, yeah, it's uncharted territory.
Fantastic. And through, it sounds like you've been on obviously quite your own health journey, and that's led you all the way through to setting up Aislings Health School. So
Yeah.
would you say that that's your, your purpose in life?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, because I felt like it was actually 10 years ago. I have this journal in front of me here, that I started when I started my healing journey and, like, recovering my own health. And I think after like a month or two, I started writing because it was in the very beginning, and I was saying, you're here, I want you, I want to share this information. I want to empower other people. I want to have a healing center. I want to like teach other people what I'm learning, because I feel like this is so empowering. So I feel like, yeah, everything in Ashling's Health School is really like the why of like why I'm here, and the thing that's like my calling, and I came to it because it wasn't like a conscious decision. It was more like my health fell apart. So I had to go on that path. And through that, I kind of quickly started to realize, oh, you're actually finding the thing that you're here to do. And, I was very passionate, like when I was training in occupational therapy, but I always felt like I didn't fit into that system. Like, cause I always like think like, yeah, I always thought differently. And I also, yeah, I would always be kind of more holistically minded, as opposed to, say, in mainstream conventional medicine. It's very much like everything is very separate, whereas I would be naturally more holistically minded. And that's because of the upbringing that I had with my mom. Like, she was just, exposed me to so much that, I think when you plant those seeds in somebody very young, it's like they start to come through. And I think you can't deny who you are. So I think for me, it's like being able to have my work be not something separate to me, but actually just a complete expression of who I am, so that I can be my happiest and at my highest service to others in the world as well.
Sounds fantastic. So what legacy do you want to create from your health school?
Yeah, I suppose the legacy I want to create is part of this new health model that's emerging. And there's many, many great pioneers that are part of this. And like who I trained with was one of those people who inspired me in being able to really educate myself about how the body works and how the body heals naturally. So yeah, the legacy that I want to create is to be part of this holistic health model that is emerging right now. And it's not fully there, but I think more and more people are interested in getting to like the root cause. And even in like, say, the US, how like integrative medicine is becoming more popular, and people are definitely becoming more conscious of food and the impact of their lifestyle. So yeah, I really want to be part of creating that connection for people, but also in a way that isn't like depriving or boring, but actually in a way that actually feels the most life affirming and the most nourishing. So yeah, the health school will hopefully be something that will live on far beyond like when I'm no longer physically here, and just be part of this movement really. It's not just, I'm one of many that are bringing this through, but I feel like the way in which I do that is very inviting, and also helps to break down that change into very simple, easy steps. And also just to make people realize that it's really just about like remembering and realigning with nature, and like what's most natural and real. And the more that we're in tune with nature, the more our health starts to flourish, and all parts of our health: physical, mental, emotional, spiritual health. So yeah, that's and I'm looking at myself now. I'm in my early 30s, and I think, yeah, well, I have hopefully another 50 years of this work to kind of make this impact on the world. So I'm doing it in a way that, yeah, I'm just like, I'm in this for the long term.
Great. You've mentioned your mum a couple of times when you've been talking. Do you want to tell us a bit more about the influence she's had on your business and where you're heading?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, I don't think I'd be doing what I'm doing without my mom and her support. Because ever since I was young, she was always like, just her own self. Like she was very much on her own path of like discovering who she was, and she was very, very passionate about like food and naturopathy. And she said like when she was 18 in college, she did yoga, and she had this like yoga mentor who taught her about fasting and naturopathy. And so she'd actually qualified in university as a teacher. And then she moved to the UK in the 80s because there was no work in Ireland. And then not long after that, she had me, but she ended up having like a bout of chronic fatigue then, like not long after having me. So that was how she really started to get into like nutrition, and like literally our whole house is just like books and books on nutrition and spirituality and, all these things. So she was always like constantly learning, constantly developing. So I was just surrounded by that. But she never like imposed like, oh, you need to do this. She very much like let me discover who I am, and didn't tell me like, oh, this is what you could be doing or should be doing. But she really like instilled she was always talking about like, oh, you're here to follow your dreams. And that was very much in contrast with my dad, who wouldn't speak like that. He wouldn't speak like that at all. So she would be kind of saying to me, you're here to follow your dreams. And I'd be kind of like, oh, I'm not really sure like who I am or like what I'm here to do. But she was just like, oh, I trust in who you are. And then when I became unwell, like she was like a major support to me. Really just learning how to, because I think the part of like being unwell is like, it's not just about physical, oh, eat this, don't eat this. It's very much like, for me anyway, it was like a spiritual awakening journey, because it's like I had to learn to accept myself and to surrender and to let go and to release like, stuff that I was holding on to and all these things. So my mom was like this mentor that was helping me through that process, because she'd gone through that herself. And so she was basically like holding the space for me to be able to like then go back and like, she fully supported me going back. And, I've just done university. Now I'm going back and training as a nutritionist. She was like, of course you are. Like, that's just part of your path. And I'm here to like hold the space for that. And then in 2018, she became suddenly unwell. And so the person that was like my biggest support, biggest cheerleader, just like my best friend, everything was just like swiped away. She had a seizure, and she was ended up being put into a coma, medically induced coma for 12 weeks. And then she passed away on the 10th of May. So during that time, it was just like, it was just like it was just like going through the biggest storm ever. But it was also, in a way, it was funny, because even though it was the hardest thing I went through, also I was shown by life, like so many people came in and supported me as I was like letting go slowly of my mom. At the time, I didn't realize, because I was like, she's going to recover 100%. I had that in my mind, but it was very much like a process of like, you've come this far now, and you can stand on your own 2 feet now. You don't need for me to hold you anymore. And then a couple of months later, I was talking at an event, and the lady who was the speaker after me, she came onto the stage and she said, oh, we all have contracts with each other before we come into life. And Martha and my mom's name is Martha. She said Martha and Aisling had a contract to work together, and Martha brought Aisling up to the perfect time, that it was her exit. But she said, have no doubt that Martha is still working with Aisling from the other side. So I was just like, I sat there kind of going, oh my gosh, I don't know who I didn't even think. I was just like, that is absolutely the truth. I could just feel it. And I just was like, oh, that's why I'm here. And I met that lady afterwards, and she just said, you need to put all your story into a book. And, because I'm obviously condensing it down. So yeah, like the fact that I'm even talking to you today, it wouldn't be the fact that my mom was basically instrumental in creating the conditions for me to be able to find who I am, like trust in my own voice, have the confidence to do something that's completely off the beaten track. To go against, I suppose, like most people's advice, say my family would be, especially after my mom passing away, it was like, oh my gosh, just go back and just do occupational therapy. That's a secure job. You don't need to stress yourself out. You're in this. And there was part of me that was kind of like, oh my God, that would be so much easier. But then the other part of me was like, but that would destroy you. Like that would, not that it would, I would do very well in that job, and, and it would be a nice profession, but it's like, not when I'm here to do this, so it was like, just navigating then grief and kind of going through that. But actually writing the book has been really, really helpful, to just express everything. And you know, I know yourself, you're a sea swimmer, so it's like, you know, when you have that heavier emotion, it's kind of like it just clears it. So when it's like if you go into the sea, it clears that like heavy emotion in the same way as writing. And I'm sure a lot of creatives and writers are like that, you know, that they have a lot of emotion, and to actually put it into some form of work and expression actually releases it from you and puts it into something that's like tangible and concrete. So yeah, my mom is like my greatest inspiration, and just I think she showed me on so many different occasions, just like even when things get really hard, even when things get really, really challenging, that it's like to have faith in who you are, and to like trust in life, you know. And it was just like the most mad, like I wouldn't even say synchronicity. It was like just a message from her. Like she was in a coma, and you know, they said at the very end, we have to take off the life support machine. So then, you know, I've never been in that situation before. So I was like, what happened? So they basically take off the machine, but the person, like she breathe, like you breathe on your own, then you breathe the room air. Because I was like, oh my God, she's not going to be able to breathe straight away. They're like, oh no, she can breathe, but she'll breathe the room air until she can't anymore. So we had her had her then, and we didn't know how long it would last for or anything like that. So everyone just surrounded her, and one of her sisters put on music. She loves ABBA. So she had Spotify on with ABBA playing, and I was lying beside her. So I just had my hand up on her chest, and I was just cuddling into her. And the nurse, anyway, you know, everyone was just like monitoring her and everything. And all of a sudden, anyway, I could feel her heart rate just like reducing. I was like, oh my gosh, her heart rate's going. But actually, the song that was playing at the time was I Have a Dream by ABBA. And just the lyrics of the song, it was like, especially if you knew my mom, it was literally her, the way she would talk. And it was just like the fact that she literally left on that song. She started leaving and she was gone by the end of that song. And it was just like, and I was like, oh my, like I was so just like devastated, but at the same time I was like amazed. I was like, oh my God, it was like she couldn't speak to me because she was completely sedated. She was not conscious, but yet her body chose to go on that moment on that song. And it was just like, yeah, it just showed me there's more to life and more to like our existence than just what we can see through our eyes. And that really showed me that. Yeah, and that really kind of not kept me going, but it gave me that kind of faith in her leaving physically. It was like to just have, yeah, not to like be completely like, oh, that's it, it's over now. It's kind of like, no, you're to go on. You know, it was like very much like you're to go on with what you're here to do now, and it's kind of like your turn. So that's been my discovery over the past 2 years. And yeah, I still feel sometimes like Bambi, you know, learning to walk. But it's like, but actually the call of my work is what actually keeps me not even going, because it's not like I have to you know, I love my life outside of work as well. Like I love spending time in nature. I love going swimming, and you know, I feel very blessed to be alive. And but I feel my work is actually just it's like the highest offering that I can give, and I'm just so honored to be able to do that. Like to be in a position now to be able to do this and to be able to grow it as well, is something that I'm very, very grateful for. And that is the kind of thing that helps me to navigate the nerves and the doubt and it's been a constant process for me, just like letting go of needing to see the outcome, but just actually really, really like accepting where I am in where I am right now and what I'm creating. And also being able to really enjoy the process of what I'm creating, you know, like with filming videos and, you know, connecting with people, and really to just enjoy it. Because I think for so long, for me anyway, I was obsessed with the outcome of, I'll be happy when my business is grown to this point. I'll be happy when I have this much certainty. I'll be happy when everything is up and running and I have a team and I have all these things. And I was like, you're never going to be satisfied with what you're creating unless you are satisfied where you are now and build on that, you know. So that's a huge like test of your mind, because your mind is obsessed with like the certainty, and especially after having something like grief, you kind of crave certainty, you know, because something, it's like literally the ground has been pulled from underneath your feet. So yeah, it's been definitely a very, very interesting time. But again, like everything I do and share is then kind of put into my work in many different forms, you know, whether it's through writing or through podcasting or through client work. So I feel like, yeah, everything kind of feeds into each other.
It's all part of your journey.
Yeah.
And all part of the road you're travelling in this life.
Yeah.
So you've touched on it a bit there, but do you want to tell us a bit more about your sort of personal values and beliefs in your broader life and how they play out in your business?
Yeah, I suppose, yeah, my values would be authenticity and integrity, and yeah, just being able to choose the highest outcomes for both myself and for those that I support. So I think, yeah, in terms of like everything that I offer is from a place of like truth and like direct experience, and I weave that into everything that I do. So I think with that, well, it really helps to like build that therapeutic relationship that I have when I have the honor to be able to work with people in such a intimate way, because like health is such an intimate thing and it's such a personal thing. So I feel like, yeah, just being able to weave that through. And I feel as well that when, like when I was unwell, it's like you so appreciate that level of authenticity in somebody like who was supporting you, because that makes like, you can literally just, you can spark somebody to go, yes, I can, when they are actually feeling the worst that they've ever felt, do you know? So it's very much like, yeah, how I want to treat others is how I would want to be treated. So it's very much like that's woven into the foundation of what I do. And hopefully as I grow then, you know, that I'm able to express that, like if I have a team, that I'm able to weave that in as well into a culture of authenticity and integrity, and in that like everything I do is coming from the highest place, and it's all you know, like I suppose at the cutting edge, you know, like everything I do is never like, oh, this is a static thing. Like I'm constantly developing my own self, my own understanding of health and how to create health and how to best support somebody who is out of balance or unwell. So yeah, that's I suppose is my biggest value. And what else did I say about values? Yeah, just like the value of connecting people then back to like the healthiest type of food for them. And I think that's something that people lose in their busy lives and in lives that are very much focused on the outside, you know, focused on their careers, focused on their families. So yeah, that reconnection part for me is huge. And when I see that happening, it's just like no greater feeling in the world when I can see that like blossoming in somebody. So yeah, I would say they're my main ones. But I have many others, but they're the kind of main ones.
And are there ways that your business is giving back or supporting charities or others less fortunate than yourselves?
Yeah, well, at the moment, since the COVID happened, I was thinking that, like, I was like, oh, I feel, you know, I'm at a stage where I'm still like very much in the infancy of what I'm developing, especially with Aislings Health School. It's very much like in the early days. So I was like, okay, where I am, what can I practically do to give back? So, what I came up with, so when people sign up, that they gift a membership then to a friend or somebody that they feel would benefit from it in the present time. But definitely, like my plans are, as I'm growing it, is to be able to offer like scholarships to people who wouldn't be able to afford the membership fee. So that's on my top priority to weave that in, and I'm hoping like over the next couple of years anyway, as it gets bigger, you know, that giving back process will get bigger as well, that I will be able to fund more of the things that I want to see developed. So yeah, I'm in the early days, but that's definitely something that I feel like I've always wanted to do. That is like, I think if you are receiving abundance, it's very important to be able to share that then with others who aren't able to access those resources. And I've seen scholarships in other programs like work really, really well. So I think that's, for me anyway, that's a really lovely model that I'd love to incorporate into what I do.
And are there any other causes or things that are happening in the world, some of the biggest issues that we're facing that you feel very connected to or that strongly about?
Yeah, I feel, well, at the moment, I have been really taken aback by the Black Lives Matters movement. I've been really, yeah, just because I think I'm empathic, and like if you have any bit of heart and sensitivity, it's hard not to be impacted by that. So, like at the moment, what I've been doing is just reaching out to other Black thought leaders and teachers, and I'm starting to have them on my podcast to really, I suppose, be part of this movement of handing over the mic or empowering people who don't necessarily, because obviously in the self-development world, it's very much like, and I've heard this, like that it's very white orientated. There's more predominantly white people. So I think that's like, for me anyway, where I am, I'm like, okay, how can I start making my work more inclusive? So that was something that I came up with straight away. I was like, I need to be able to, my platform isn't massive, but I would imagine as it grows, it's very, very important to amplify the voices of those who are actually helping and healing people in the black community. So yeah, I feel like when that happened and kind of hit the world, I was just like, oh my gosh, like you can't ignore this. Like this has to be something that's an ongoing development for all of us that are here to create like impact driven businesses. It's like, it's I feel it's very important that we all do our own piece. We don't have to do everything, but I think we all need to do our own part that we feel that we can at the moment.
It feels like a lot of what you're doing is very much about empowering other people and working with them and obviously focusing on their health. What about yourself? How do you go about looking after yourself? What's your own self-care practices look like?
Yeah, so I've gotten really good around like having a good like morning routine and evening routine, and that's kind of, it's not like set in stone as to what it is, but it's really about like making sure that I have proper sleep and that I'm, constantly like filling myself up with positivity and like, reading stuff that makes me feel good. Actually, comedy is a huge part of my self-care routine. So I love things like, I don't know if you've ever seen Schitt's Creek. It's a program on Netflix. I love it. So I love light-hearted comedies because, the work that I do is kind of heavy and serious, and I can get very heavy and serious. So it's very important for me to kind of lighten things up a bit and just be playful. And then spending time with my dogs. I have two dogs, and they are just like the funniest little characters ever. So I have such fun with them. And then I just I love exercising in nature. So that whether that's walking or hiking or swimming, especially swimming in the sea, I absolutely love. So, and then, in terms of food and stuff like that, like, oh my gosh, like I just love nourishing myself with lovely food. And, that's something that I'm like, really excited to learn new recipes and to, discover new ways of creating healthy foods and, making them really, really delicious. So, for me, like just even creating food, even though it's part of my job, like I love it. So it's something that gives me massive joy. And then, in the time, obviously at the moment, it's kind of like a funny time in the world, but I love to like spend time then with like really close friends that I, just have great, just really empowering relationships. I think it's really important to have empowerment when you are creating something that you're empowering others. It's like you have to create spaces where you're receiving empowerment. Those relationships, I think, is so, so important. And then my relationship with my fiance is also like a huge source of self-care and happiness. And, he's a musician, so he's doing his own thing as well. And so it's really lovely that we get to both work together. And, we do different things, but we collaborate and we support each other. And next year we're planning on going on the road on a camper van. So, that'll be fun.
Fantastic. Thank you ever so much, Aisling. It's been so good to hear about your journey and the why behind your business and what drives you and what makes it so important for you to do this work and to have this impact on the world. Do you want to finish up by just telling listeners a bit more about where they can find you and your business and your offerings?
Yeah, so you can find me, my website is aislingfitzgibbon.com. So you can find all my offerings there. I have Aislings Health School there, and if you want to send me an email, and happy to chat. And if you wanted to connect with me just on social media, I'm often on Instagram and Facebook. So it's Aisling FitzGibbon on both Facebook and Instagram. So I do all fun things there, and you can check out like ideas of recipes and I share lots of great tips. And I have a free guide actually for your listeners if they're interested on tips to boost their immunity. And so that has like lots of nice recipes and ideas for building immunity in this time. So happy to connect.
Great. We'll make sure all that information is added to the show notes, especially because I know some people struggle with Irish spelling of names.
I know, and they'll be like Aisling FitzGibbon. They'll be like, say that again, please.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And obviously, Aisling's business health school can also be found on Angel Rated, so we will also put the link to that in the show notes. So thank you ever so much for joining us, Aisling. We will add show notes, as I said, and they'll all be available on angelrated.com/podcast. And if you enjoyed this episode, obviously I would love you to subscribe to the show and review it on your favourite podcast platform. And don't forget to share this episode with all your business buddies.